This is Pet Nation with John Muller.
Welcome to Pet Nation, and we're going to talk about an exotic animal today, and those are birds. Birds are, well, I don't know as much about birds as I should, and that's why I'm going to bring on our expert right now, and we're going to get into it. I know that they live a long time. I know that they can be super smart, but I'm going to get an education, and if you're interested in birds, you are too. This is Dr. Latney, and she is from the Schwarzman Animal Medical Center. Doctor, welcome back.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being with us. You were so wonderful last time. So let's talk about birds. I'll just start out with my two cliche things. Birds I know are smart, and I know they can live a long time. You can comment on that and then go wherever you like. Tell us about birds as pets.
Absolutely. You nailed it. Those are the two main things I want people to remember. A lot of people, I tell people birds, because of their family structures in the wild, they bond very strongly to their family units. So that's the one unique thing about them as pets. They bond very strongly to us. I remind people that in the wild, birds have usually flocks. There's very few of them that are solitary. I think that connectivity with family and that social interaction and dependence, they really do become strong family members for us. And I think that's the appeal for them in the pet trade.
Let's talk about the longevity. Now, you hear these stories about, I'm not sure if it's parrots, but people they almost have to have something in their will who's going to take care of the bird but are the little parakeets, I guess they're called, do they have a much shorter lifespan? What's the range?
Yeah, so it's a really great question. For our smaller birds, especially our parakeets, back in the day, they used to get into their 20s. So I tell people it's pretty rare to have a parrot of any size. Even some of our finch friends, our passerine friends, you want to estimate at least 10 years in the game. The bigger the bird, so we start going from pint size to mini me to big parrot. When you start thinking about medium-sized birds, the big parrots, they are living your life expectancy. Just like our turtle friends, you might want to put them in your living will. I have a number of parrot species that are older than me that come to see me. They remember me, and they're older than some of their family members. So the age range does change with the parrot size.
Let's talk about attention. How much attention does your pet bird need?
Absolutely. So they actually require a lot. They are very much like us, where they have to have some type of social interaction and connectivity. I remind people that in the wild, a bird has a flock, right? So imagine if you live with your brothers, your sisters, your mom, your dad, your uncles, your great grandfather, 4 or 5 generations back on both of your parents' side. That's a flock. They're used to living with a very large group of animals that have memorized their behavior and have basically raised them. So I tell people a lot of pet birds have been raised by people, not by birds. So their dependency on us is even more challenging, if you can think of it that way. And so I tell people if they're going to have a pet bird, liken it to having a small child. They're going to have a certain level of dependence emotionally, and also for them to grow and to mature. And that can be a very, very rewarding experience for a lot of families.
If you have a late day at the office, obviously if you have a late day in office and you have the dog, you have to call the dog walker because you can't leave the dog in the house too long before. Can you have a late day with a bird? And as much as he or she might miss you, do you have to physically be there if it's one of those extreme days?
That's a really great question. If you set them up with proper enrichment, so the way to keep their brains healthy, you may be able to stretch those things. So birds need a lot of enrichment. When they're in the wild, you think about what they do. They have to fly to this tree at this time of the year because they know that the foods are there. They have to discriminate between things that are poisonous versus not. They know what a predator looks like. So their brains are always acting. They engage in hemispheric sleep, which is amazing. It means that they're always alert, but half of their brain shuts down when they're asleep. The other half is awake just in case. So I remind people like that's a very active brain. So there's very unique ways that you can set them up for success at home so they can actively use their brains and not be very, very codependent on having to have a person there. The other thing is you can set up pet cams. You can also have people check on them. They actually have done studies where like birds can call birds and they can talk to each other. They actually understand that there's another bird on the other line. They can visually understand that there's another bird on the iPad. This was research that recently came out in the last 3 years. And so there's tons of ways to keep them engaged and to keep them healthy, even if you have to have a long day at work.
I got to ask you this. Some dogs are like a one owner, as they say, where they just really focus on one person. Are birds friendly to your friend who comes over and says, hey, little birdie, or is that bird going to peck him like, I don't know you, get out of here? How friendly are they to their non-owners or your cousin who comes over now and then? Are they friendly to everybody or just who they know?
That's a really good one. I think it has a lot to do with how well they're socialized as little ones.
Socialized,
same
just
with
like a cat or a dog. Wow.
Exactly. And same with the child. If a child's very, very nervous and they're not exposed to new things, and if new things are scary for them and that's autopiloted in their heads, then guess what? Everything is scary to them moving forward. So I tell people like when they have a younger bird, it's important to expose them to new things so that they can dissolve the fear of being fearful of new things. And so I'm the scariest person, although I'm not, that a bird can meet, right? And I always surprise owners because I ask the bird, step up, and they step up, or like I immediately lean in and give them a kiss. And everyone thinks like, oh, you're just being really, really affectionate. I'm like, actually, I'm talking to the bird in bird language. In the wild, when a bird puts its face next to your face, that is a huge sign of trust because when they fight, they bite each other in the face, and that is their weapon. That is their tool. The other thing is giving them choice, which is really important. Like we're primates and we control the environment. We control a lot, but when you're able to offer them choice and they trust you, I find that their personalities are so invitational. Some of the scariest birds that an owner's like, I haven't held my bird in 30 years. She's so, fighting. I'm just like, oh, step up high. The minute I start to show them trust, they start to trust you. So I do think it's a two-way street. You can raise them to be happy, and then you want to make sure they're happy.
You sound like the bird whisperer, Dr. Latney. Welcome back to Pet Nation, all things birds on this episode. So let's get back to talking to Dr. Latney, and let's talk about veterinarian care. Did I say that right? I don't know. I think I chopped off a syllable.
You got it.
How hard is it to care for a bird? And what are some of the signs? Hey, I just got a bird down at the pet store and I've had it for 6 months and everything's wonderful. And what do I want to make sure I look towards to make sure things are in fact wonderful?
Sounds great. So I would say biggest thing is learning that pet's normals. Also making sure they're eating and drinking pretty well. There's probably a top 5 things that I would always monitor for any exotic species, but especially for birds. You want to make sure what's going in is also coming out. So if your pet's regurgitating, vomiting, or if there's any abnormal droppings or stools, any color changes, that's a reason to bring them into the vet. You want to make sure their behavior are normal. That's the main way that all of us talk to each other in the animal kingdom. So if they get quiet or the eyes are kind of half masked or they're fluffed or they're not playing with their favorite toy, you might not be able to give it a diagnosis, but we trust you because you're the expert on your pet's behavior that something's not right. And that would be a time to bring them into the vet. I like to warn people about exotic patients in the wild. If they show illness or sickness, it's a wrap, right? A predator comes to get them. So these guys are like really, really, really good at hiding clinical signs. And so their behaviors can be quite subtle. So trust your gut. If something's just not quite right, we'd much rather you come in for us to check it out. And I will tell you 9 times out of 10, you were right. And we're there to try to help to make sure we can afford them the best medical care possible.
That's great. Expense-wise with food and just the hassles of walking your dog or cleaning that cage. Are birds tough or are they on the easy side?
I think they're on the easy side, to be kind of frank with you. I think the one thing that might get a little draining is enrichment items. But if you have a steady supply of cardboard and some household items to make toys for them, to shred them and things like that, that shouldn't be too expensive. Sometimes you might need a babysitter for when you're out of town. And usually the cost for that is definitely less than, say, for a cat or a dog, because you don't have to walk them. Vet care is pretty commiserate. Usually vet care is actually less than what it would be for a cat or a dog, even though it happens to be more specialized.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but then food's pretty widely available in different forms. Some of that food is healthy food that you eat, so it might not necessarily be that you're doing something you're special shopping for them. Healthy dark leafy greens and veggies are important for birds as well. And so you already have them in your fridge. You just have one small additional mouth to feed, and a place where you can get food that's highly accessible and nutritious for them.
If you're recommending a pet to someone, who's ideal for a bird? Is it anybody, or is it better for somebody who's less active, more at home, less at home? Does it run the gamut, or is somebody more suited for a bird?
I think it takes a person who really understands avian natural history and conservation to be a good bird owner. And I say that because they have to learn a bird's language and where they come from in order to be the best bird mom or the best bird dad ever. It does require certain commitment. So I tell people, I say this about pet dogs too. It's like having a little kid for a really long time. Yeah. This is equivalent to that. You want to make sure that if you have that pet at a very young age, you have to put a lot of work into them to make sure that they grow up to be a happy adult. And they're a little bit of a time commitment, but it's a beautiful thing. I have birds older than me that come in. They're so much more well-adjusted than my human friends that I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Do birds have that calming effect that cats and dogs have, where you have a pet and it's like they say it's almost like taking an antidepressant. It just kind of calms you and it soothes you. Do birds rile you up, or do they soothe you?
They do both, which, by the way, I think is a good thing. I get sedated by my patients all the time. The minute I show them affection and they show me affection, it's like Xanax by proxy. It's amazing. But at the same time, birds they're designed to scream and shout. And sometimes when you're say you're doing your workout in your living room, now's the time to have a bird. They're your best cheerleader. They get really excited when we get excited. It's a really unique way for us to engage in speaking the same language, even though we're different species.
How neat. I could talk about this for a lot longer, but we are out of time. So we'll have you back. Maybe we'll talk about birds. We definitely want to talk about reptiles and maybe pigs down the road. So we'll go to you when it's time to do another exotic pet episode. Dr. Latoya Latney, thank you so much for joining us. You are just the best. We appreciate it. And Dr. Latoya Latney is at the Schwarzman Animal Medical Center here in Manhattan. All right, doctor, we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining us, and we thank you for joining us. I'm John Muller for Pet Nation. See you next time.